You know the scene, the crowd roaring, the faces painted, the collective heartbeat pulsing toward a single outcome. For millions, sports are sacred. The stadium is their cathedral. Victory is transcendence, and defeat feels personal. Yet, some people stand apart, quietly detached, almost alien in their indifference. They don't hate sports, they just don't need them. They watch the frenzy, the passion, the tribal devotion, and feel nothing. Or maybe something more complex: curiosity, amusement, sometimes mild discomfort. Why? Why do some people remain untouched by one of humanity's most universal obsessions? The answer isn't arrogance or a lack of emotion. We're not getting it. It's psychology, and it's much deeper than preference. It's about identity, belonging, and what we use to define meaning. Sports are not just games, they are rituals of collective identity. They bind strangers into temporary tribes. Anthropologically, they serve the same purpose as ancient ceremonies and war dances. They forge belonging. Your team wins, you feel strong. They lose, you grieve together. It's social synchrony. Millions of nervous systems moving in rhythm, but not everyone's brain craves synchrony. Those who don't obsess over sports often have what psychologists call a low social affiliation drive, a tendency to derive self worth from internal stability rather than external belonging. Their identity isn't anchored in collective emotion but in private coherence. They don't need the tribe to tell them who they are. That doesn't make them superior, just differently wired. Their dopamine system, for example, may not spike as easily from vicarious victory, the phenomenon where fans experience team success as personal success. They're not wired to mirror other people's excitement so intensely. Instead, they find stimulation in observation, pattern recognition, ideas, introspection, forms of engagement that don't require allegiance. There's also something philosophical happening here. People who don't obsess over sports tend to exhibit higher psychological indifference. The ability to maintain individuality within a group. They also enjoy shared culture without surrendering self definition to it. Where others see belonging, they often see performance. To them, sports fandom can look like a socially sanctioned release valve, a ritualized outlet for aggression, identification, and tribalism. They might even sense the undercurrent of existential distraction, the way competition gives life shape in a culture terrified of stillness. They're not above it, they simply see through it. They notice how fervor can slip into hostility, how loyalty can morph into identity substitution, and how some people's self esteem lives or dies by what other people do with the ball. To the reflective mind, that seems fragile because it is. But let's go deeper beneath intellect into emotion. Many who feel detached from sports once felt alienated from group emotion itself. Maybe they grew up in families where excitement was overwhelming, where cheering was chaos, where vulnerability felt unsafe. Or perhaps they learned early that passion usually turns to volatility. So they retreated inward, building a sense of calm, control, that now defines their emotional landscape. That's emotional self containment, a coping pattern that favors neutrality over reactivity. It's not apathy, it's regulation. They prefer to experience life through observation rather than immersion. Because immersion once meant danger. For others, it's simply existential minimalism, the instinct to avoid identification with things that don't endure. The outcome of a game is transient. The excitement fades, and to some minds, that kind of passion feels counterfeit. A spike of meaning that collapses as soon as the scoreboard clears. They crave deeper, slower forms of significance. From a sociological lens, sports provide three psychological currencies: community, emotional release, and clarity. For non obsessed, those needs are met elsewhere. Community might come through art, philosophy, family, or nature. From emotional release might arise from music, solitude, or even introspection. Clarity might be found in reading or creating rather than competing. They're not lacking those needs, they've simply diversified their fulfillment. But here's where the dark truth emerges. When you don't attach easily to collective passions, the world can mistake your calm for emptiness. People might see you as detached, aloof, too serious. You might feel a quiet loneliness in a crowd, aware that others are moved by something that leaves you untouched. You might even question yourself, why can't I care like they do? But that question assumes that caring more is inherently better. It isn't, it's just louder. Neuroscientifically, obsession, whether with sports, music, or ideology, activates the mesolimbic dopamine pathway, the brain's reward system for anticipation and victory. People who don't obsess often have higher prefrontal regulation, meaning their reasoning circuits moderate that emotional surge. They can enjoy without being consumed, participate without being possessed. This isn't emotional absence, it's emotional sovereignty. Still, detachment can have a shadow. When you never merge with collective feeling, you also miss its beauty. The electric unity, the shared heartbeat, the ritual of hope. Total autonomy can become sterile. Sometimes it's healthy to let self dissolve into something larger, even if it's just a game. The philosopher Montaigne once said, "My mind is never so disordered as when it's wholly occupied by one thing." That's the essence of balance: to care, but not too much, to feel without surrendering your mind. Those who don't obsess over sports are, in their own way, heirs to that philosophy. They've chosen mental freedom over collective intensity. They may not chant in unison, but their calm comes from something equally human: the ability to witness without worship. And maybe that's what we need more of: people who can stand in a crowd, admire the passion, and still remember it's just a game. Because collective obsession, unchecked, easily becomes collective blindness. The non obsessed play a different role in emotional ecosystem. They are the observers, the balance keepers, the ones who remind us that meaning doesn't have to be borrowed from others' excitement. It can be quiet, internal, self authored. If you ever felt like that, a calm observer in a world of noise, tell me in the comments how you see it. Do you ever feel detached when someone else seems swept away? I'd love to hear your perspective. And if reflections like this speak to you, consider subscribing so we can keep exploring the psychology of what it means to stay awake in a world that wants you to react. Because the goal was never to care about everything, it was to care about what actually nourishes you. And if that happens to be peace over passion, reflection over rivalry, then you're not missing out. You're just tuned into a different kind of game, the quiet, lifelong one of understanding yourself.